I'm here and joined with my sort of, have we officially called you my like cousin-in-law? Is that the official title of you?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Because obviously you are married to my cousin Sid, so I assume that makes you my cousin-in-law.
That's what I've been operating off of as well. It's been wonderful to have some new cousins in my life.
For sure. I'll be making what's the word I'm looking for? I'll making some moves, so I'll be on the top here pretty soon. But no, thank you so much for joining the pod, Pat. You are now the third ever guest on the show, so you're in a very special company on the Tweet Show pod.
It's an honor. It's an honor, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm looking forward to it.
Have you been on any other pod? I'm assuming this is probably your first.
No, I haven't. I love podcasts. I've been listening to
mine, obviously,
for over a decade. Yours, definitely. Follow you on Twitter as well, so I enjoy your content in many forms. But I've listened to thousands of hours of podcasts. I've never been on one. So this is really a treat.
Awesome. I mean, by you having, or I guess by you being on here, if you ever come on another podcast, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with life, right? Things come slowly and then all at once. So maybe this time next year I'll be on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really much of a Joe Rogan fan. Like, I like him on the USC stuff, but like I can't listen to his podcast. One, it's too long, and two, sometimes I'm just not interested in some of the topics. So it's a weird thing. So I mean, I'm sure people like it, and I have no problem with people liking it, but it's just not my cup of tea. Basically, what I'm saying, because like I said, it depends on the topic, and two, it's just his format's way too long for me to listen.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, do you remember Joe Rogan? I mean, it sounds like you know him from the UFC, but my first memory of Joe Rogan was when he was the host of Fear Factor, and he's like having people eat cockroaches and cow brain and stuff, and then all of a sudden he's this like incredible podcaster. Like, what a change!
Yes and no, sort of. I remember Joe Rogan from Fear Factor, but I didn't realize that was him because he looks so much different from when he did Fear Factor. So it's like, because obviously he had sort of hair, right? He was kind of like in the before stages of being bald, and like I just more remember him being the USC guy. So, and then obviously they've had some other people do a Fear Factor in the past. So yeah. So let's just sort of, even though we're sort of jumping right into it, but congratulations on being a father. I mean, props to you, man. Also, props to Sid too. But how's dad? How's being a father right now? I mean, I don't know if you can answer it right now because you've only been like roughly a month now. But how's it going? How's life?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's an amazing difference, amazing change. I am somebody who has always loved children. I come from a big family. I always wanted a family, and so Sydney and I, as we got married, we were looking forward to welcoming Noah Lynn is our baby boy, and ideally more children in the future. At the same time, it's one of these things in life where before and after are totally different. I mean, I would say my biggest takeaway trying to be the best dad I can be and husband to Sydney, etc., is just an appreciation for families, for moms and dads throughout my life. Only a month and a half in, almost 2 months in, but there's just, it's difficult. I mean, we have every blessing and grace, great support network. We were looking forward to Noah, good healthcare, all these things. It's still difficult, but it's amazing. I think one other little takeaway I have that may be of interest to the audience. I think a lot about how to be the best person I can be and resilience and some of these topics that come up in the world. And you're hanging out with a baby at 2 a.m, right? And Noah doesn't want to go to sleep. And I was reminded of Admiral Jim Stockdale. Have you ever heard that name?
I don't think I have.
So he was the longest serving POW of the Vietnam War. So he was in the Hanoi Hilton for like over a decade. And when he got back, there were many people came in and out during his time there. I don't know why he was there for so long, but he was known as a leader of the men who were in prison there. And when he came back, people wanted to know, well, how did you keep your sanity, stay positive? How were you a leader through that? And he said that, men would come in and they say, oh, we'll be home by Christmas. We'll be home by Easter, right? And Christmas would come and Easter would come, and they wouldn't be home. And then they'd say, okay, well, we'll for sure be home by the 4th of July. And the 4th of July would come. And when that happened, they'd pin their whole identity and resilience to these arbitrary things they couldn't control. And he said, look, you just got to be in it, right? And I think that that's a big takeaway I have being a dad. 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, right? There's no end to this, right? Which is a beautiful thing. I mean, it's really something that I love and it's exciting, but the difficult times, especially, you just got to like accept that it's happening and sort of not put your expectations on, in my case, Noah, right?
Right. I totally agree with all the things you just said. And that was a great point of who was the guy's name again?
Jim Stockdale.
Yeah, with him. And I just have a couple things. One, if I'm ever privileged and have an honor to be a dad, which I'm hoping to be someday, I think it'd be a really cool thing. But like I think the moment that'll hit me that I have a kid is exactly sort of your point, the 2 a.m. like wake up call. But like, what the heck is that noise? Why is there a random noise? And my wife would be like, "That's your kid, dumbass." We're like, "Oh shit, that's right, I have a kid." And then the other thing, like, it'd be like the other thing is, I listened to a podcast guy, and he's now about to be a father of 3. So shout out Big Cat, and he was talking about, and I think they were sort of doing a Q&A, and he was like, I think somebody asked him, he's like, "Hey, what do you, what's some advice of being a father?" He's like, well, "I don't know. You just got to kind of go with the flow. Like there isn't really much of a book. I mean, there are sort of, so-called books, I should say, about how to be a parent, but really there isn't really like, you just got to kind of go with the flow." Is that sort of like a fair assessment so far in your 1 month of being a father?
Yeah, I would say so. Big Cat sounds like he's right on it. It is really tempting to think that other people have it figured out because there are people who've written books. There are people who have big families. There are people who have who in your life who just you sort of identify as great parents, or people who have huge influencer profiles where that's what they talk about. And it is humbling, but also reassuring to realize people have been doing this with or without all of this information for millennia. And if I'm just here and I try my best and I try and have perspective and I try and communicate with Sydney, my wife, and we just try and get through it, we're going to get through it, because it is really tempting. I mean, in this area and with all areas in life, to just think that everybody has it all figured out. I love what you said about looking forward to being a father someday. I hope that for you as well. I do worry for men who are just totally opposed to that. Now, of course, there are people who are not called to have families and for whom it doesn't occur, and that's okay. But I do, there's a sense out there. Not all reasons for that are created equal. Sometimes you hear people they just want to preserve their sense of freedom. They want to be able to go to the bars on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be able to pick up and go travel somewhere. There's obviously an increased expense to having children. I would just really encourage any of your listeners to reflect on their attitude towards being a parent, and just realize that it's part of being human, right? I mean, we were all this kind of tiny child, and to the extent that you have had an interesting and exciting life where people have cared for you and you've had cool experiences, somebody made that choice to be there for you. And so just really think about, not for you, because I was really pleased to hear you say that, but if any of your listeners are like, well, I couldn't be a dad, or I don't want to be a dad or a mom, right? Just really think about that. And I think we're all capable of it.
Right. I mean, yeah, like I said, if I ever become a dad, I'll have moments where I'll be like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be like not ready, but like, I'll just in the moment, I'll be like, how am I supposed to take care of this thing? It's like, I don't know. Sometimes like, I think the first step is to like take care of a dog. If you can take care of a dog, and I feel like you should be able to at least do a better, or not a better job, but like you should, what's the word I'm looking for? So like, basically, if you can take care of a dog, I feel like you should be able to take care of a human, even though a human's a lot more work, but like, it's sort of is that a good comparison?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so Denver, or where I live now, big dog city, right? And there's a whole category of people who see dogs as humans. And one thing I'll say categorically are dogs are not humans. Now, I have a dog that I love, right? But Merlin is not a baby human.
Right.
He's not a small, fuzzy human. So that is a something that people really believe, which I push back strongly against. But where are they similar? Certainly dependence, especially when a dog is a puppy. Once a dog gets potty trained, especially, and of course, depending on your breed of dog, I would say some of that dependence is dissimilar to having a baby. On the other hand, when you have a child, and this is a little harder to understand or comment on even for me, but there's all sorts of chemical things happening, right? There's all sorts of biological, psychological things happening which encourage you to care for this very defenseless baby, right? It's not like a giraffe when the giraffe comes out and it kind of like stumbles around for a little bit and then it just walks around and eats eucalyptus leaves or whatever giraffes eat, right? Noah is totally dependent on Sydney and I, really, I don't know where you put that, the line on that, 18, 10, right? I don't know. But so that is a little different from a dog. I get the sense Merle can make it on the streets for a few days at least. And
at least.
Cute dog. He get picked up by someone, but of course I wouldn't want that. So there are similarities and differences. One other kind of small thing I'll note here, you do get a sense, you just sort of can understand what your dog is asking for after some time. Like the first time you get your dog and it barks, you're like, what's this dog barking at? And then 6 months in, you think, oh, he's hungry. He needs to go outside. There's somebody out front. And similar thing with Noah, the first few days, like, here's this fresh baby making all sorts of noises. And now I would say, I can hear a difference in his cry if he has a diaper, if he's hungry, if he's just frustrated. I dropped you have these little visual cards that kind of get the baby thinking. I dropped a card on him. He was upset by that. It's just a little paper card, right? But very different cry than when he is hungry. So those are some thoughts on dogs versus babies. But in general, I think accepting more responsibility is a good way forward, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So we were sort of talking about this during our little pre-production thing, but what kind of sports are you looking at for your son Noah to be doing? So, because here's my thoughts on it real quick, if you don't mind me talking about it. So I think, first of all, I think all kids should at least try a sport. If they don't like it, that's fine. That's their choice. But I think it's a good way to meet kids, make some friends. If you like the sport, great. Then you can keep improving and do great things at it. But like I said, sports aren't for everybody, but if you do like it, that's great. So I would encourage to, do the sports. So like basketball, baseball, even soccer. And then obviously you can do flag football. Then tackle football is a whole different conversation. That's between you and your wife, Sid. So when that day comes about, if he does like football, and he wants to do tackle, that's a whole totally different conversation between you and your wife. I'm not going to say yes or no, because it's a whole different sport. But like all the other sports that are not crazy physical and contact, I think, like I said, it's a great way to meet friends and be like, oh, hey, do you like this sport? Oh, we should totally hang out. Oh, you don't like this sport and you want to go play some video games? Yeah, let's go meet at my parents' house and go play some video games or something like that. So yeah.
No, great thoughts. I'm going to rapid fire some responses at you, and you jump in because I'm going to go all over the place here.
Gotcha.
Let me know where you think. Let me know where you think this is going to be. First off, Noah's going to be a big kid. He's in the 90+ percentile height wise.
Big boy.
I'm 6'1", 200 pounds. Sydney's 6 foot, right? Like he's going to be a big kid. So I think there is a certain aspect of like physiologically what are kids kind of set up to do. The one strong sense that I have right now is early on, maybe not when he's pre-K or toddler, but early on, I want to get him into some sort of combat sport. I really think that for both boys and girls is a really important place to recognize, to kind of connect your body to your mind.
Okay.
And in relation to other people, right? It is an opportunity to learn what you're capable of, to engage in competition, to learn sportsmanship in a really difficult situation. And here's another distinction here. Again, I'm going all over the place. Team versus non-team things, right? So you get a kid involved in basketball versus Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? Some of those lessons they learn ultimately, I think you could learn a lot of similar lessons from being engaged in sport over time. And there's an important aspect of playing with kids and everything. But that sort of direct physical confrontation, understanding what you like, understanding that is a way that people can interact is huge. One point I'll give you on that: I was in the military. I did ROTC in college, and I was a combat arms officer in the military. One part of our training that was emphasized is we had combatives training, which is a military kind of martial arts, very basic martial arts system. Has some jujitsu, has some kind of punching and stuff. It's not like super intense, but our leaders, the people who are facilitating our training, were saying, look, this is where the rubber hits the road. If you can't endure and perform and accept and grow when you're getting, one of the things was you got punched in the face and tasered. Like those are two things that happened to you. Like this is part of the training, much less some of the sparring you did. But it's like, look, you got to be able to get punched in the face and keep going because that's life, man.
Yeah.
Okay. And then final thing. So I'm going all over the place here. So there's kind of like, hey, individual versus group sports, this kind of combative stuff that I was talking about. And then as they get older, how do you help them to really find something they enjoy and want to achieve that? Even if it's soccer, if it's jiu-jitsu, it's a difficult road. I don't think Sydney and I want to Serena and Venus Williams, Noah, right? We're not going out there. You look at the statistics for any of these sports, really, and it's like, okay, to get from a competent child to a pro athlete where you're making the money, that's not a path we're going to try and put him on. Now, it could be that he's good enough to get on that path, and like, we'll support him, right? But I do think there's probably some discrete periods of time where it's like, okay, you're kind of experimenting. Maybe you find something you want, whether individual or team based. You really go after it. How much of your identity is wrapped up in that? How many resources are we throwing at that versus we also want you to be able to play an instrument, like, I don't know, be in the choir or whatever, right? So a lot of thoughts out there.
Yeah, lots. One, I don't know how good of a singing talent either you or Sid are, but I mean, he can go for it, but like, I don't know about the singing. But anyways, yeah, I mean, you had a lot of great thoughts about like the whole comeback stuff, or not comebacks, whatever, karate or whatever. I'm sorry. But you know what's funny?
Combatives.
Yeah. But anyways, here's a funny story I'll tell real quick. I was like, I think I want to say it was like 9, and I had a friend who was actually in karate, and like his birthday party was in a karate thing, and I think I accidentally signed up for a class, and then I got really upset. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do karate, even though it's kind of a cool sport. But like, I just, at the time, I was not interested. And I like sort of like fake cried to get out of it. I fake cried to get out of it. But no, yeah, it was funny. It was like, because I had to wear like the whole like, what do you want to call it? Those like robe things?
Gi. Yeah, gi, I think they're called.
Yeah, so I had to wear that, and like it was kind of, like I said, it was a cool party, but like I was just not interested in like becoming a karate master at the time. Not on my path, just not on my career path at the moment. But maybe if I try it again, maybe. But I was not interested in being the next Karate Kid or whatever. But anyways, yeah, just wanted to tell that quick funny story. So yeah,
I hear you.
Let's see what else did I had for you. Let me look at my notes real quick. So we talked about, okay. Oh, then you sort of like hinted at the idea of you were interested in doing the whole March Madness bracket. So let me talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for the listener here, I don't have as much of an interest or background in sports as many folks, just the way I was raised.
Sure.
You know, major sport, like the Super Bowl or something we would watch. My family just wasn't watching football on Sundays or particularly into basketball. And then maybe connecting back to our previous topic, the sports I did were swimming, wrestling, cross country, you know, very individual sports. But of course, a lot of our culture, and it is very interesting, you know, these major things like March Madness, the NFL, and all that. And so just for the listener, last year I was invited to participate in a work fantasy football league. And so I reached out to Chanler as just a trusted expert in my life and really learned a lot through the process of participating in the league. Started out strong in the league, ultimately ended up finishing towards the bottom. But I learned a lot, just how it all works and why it's fun. And it was fun. It certainly kept me engaged through the weekend as you're having different players playing. So as we were talking about doing this podcast, you got this major March Madness thing on the around the corner. I don't think I've ever made a bracket. You know, my 30 odd years of life, I've never made a bracket, and so would just be interesting to hear, Chanler, what you're thinking about for this coming tournament.
Yeah, so when you brought up the topic, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to help you win this bracket because I'm usually pretty decent at it, even though I have like one or two like misses, which happens every year. No one's going to have the perfect bracket, but knowing it would be so funny if you're the one person who hasn't done it in like 30 years gets the perfect bracket. It'd be so funny. You'd be the one person be like, yeah, I've never watched a single second of basketball and somehow just got it all right. You're like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm just really good at basketball knowledge. But anyway, so let me give you some quick tips on like filling out a bracket. So I would recommend, so when you fill out a bracket, there are going to be some teams on the bracket side, right? So you're going to look at some of the teams. You're like, oh, well, this team's higher than this seed, right? Wrong. There's at least a minimum of like 5 to 6 upsets. So you got to pick between like 5 to 6 upsets from each team. Now I can sort of give you some hints on which teams that could be when the brackets come out, obviously. So just for the listeners, I'm going to give out like a couple teams to watch out for. So like Kent State, Indiana, Northwestern, TCU. There's obviously, I'll do more of a breakdown of it towards like once we get closer to the March Madness and the whole NCAA. But yeah, those are a couple teams I would just sort of, because like actually was going to do like a preview right before the interview and all that other stuff. So yeah. So this is just some other
stuff. What do you, just as you look in the crystal ball for this March, what do you think the storyline is going to be? What do you think people are going to be talking about the whole tournament? Is there going to be a team, kind of a Cinderella team, or that's going to be the talk of the town, or is it going to be, hey, look, the dominant team, Duke or whatever, is just going to crush it? What's your thought on the story?
That's a great question. Some of the storylines are for sure is Kansas repeat as champions, because we haven't had a back-to-back national championship team since Florida when they did it in like 07, 08. So that'll be the one storyline for sure. Then the other storyline will be, can Houston from a mid-major school be sort of the because the Final Four this year is in Houston, so can they get to the Final Four and win it in their home state, in their hometown and stuff like that? And then some of the Cinderella stories, I haven't looked at, obviously the bracket's not out yet, but I would think like teams like sort of like Indiana, maybe, I don't know, maybe not Indiana, but like maybe like TCU, or I'm trying to think of other teams out there. But yeah, because like Purdue, for example, was like the consistent number one team throughout the whole season so far. But obviously they're sort of like trending in the wrong direction. So, I mean, you could definitely pick them in your bracket, but like it depends on who they're matching up against. Because like at this moment in time, like I said, they're trending in the wrong direction. So I'm leaning towards not to pick them to go far, but like at the same time, they got a 7'5" kid who's like really talented. But like I said, there's definitely some storylines I'm going to be looking at, and also another storyline for sure, because like I'm sure, I don't know if you're aware of this, but like there is some controversy going on with the whole Alabama program right now with I
hadn't heard that. No.
So yeah, so sort of a quick update, because like I'm sure this will take a lot of our interview time, but basically there's a former Alabama player murdered someone, and then a teammate of his brought him the gun, even though I don't think it was like I said, it's a whole messy situation. So if you want to do some quick research of your own, but like either way,
jeez,
I mean, yeah, it's a bad situation. It's very sorry for the person who got murdered. We're thinking of their family and all that stuff, but like at the same time, it's like they're a good team. Like they're the number 2 team in America, but I wouldn't be shocked if most of America starts rooting against them because like the whole situation with the whole murder case. And I'm like, well, I want to pick them to go far, but at the same time, I kind of want to root against them. And I'm usually rooting against them because of their football team, not because of the basketball team. So it's a weird situation going on for sure. So yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Have you seen the Apple TV series Ted Lasso? Have you seen that?
Oh my God, such a great show.
Great show. Right?
Great show.
And so when I hear that, and I agree with you, tragic for the person who got murdered, and obviously you don't want any of that violence in any area of life, but when you're looking at these dynamics and you're writing your bracket at the beginning of the tournament, right? There has to be an aspect of team focus, and even maybe coaching would be a separate subject. But I think about the Alabama team, not knowing anything about their season or who else is on the team or whatever. But I have a sense of Alabama as a high performing institution. You have this murder stuff going on. Whatever dynamic brought you to this point, that's got to be interrupted a bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Because here's the thing. Because like once like sort of this more information happened, because this whole situation happened about 5 weeks ago, and like last Tuesday they played a game against South Carolina, and the athletic director for Alabama was sort of saying about, because like Brandon Miller, who's a player involved with it, but like he's not the murderer, but he's the one who brought the gun. Allegedly, this is all alleged. So I'm not the person, or I'm not the legal person to be. I need to do more research on it. But anyways, they played a game against South Carolina. It was in South Carolina, and like the AD's like, hey, look, we don't have all the information yet. Obviously, there's some different laws in Alabama because like I think you're allowed to carry a weapon. So, anyways, what am I getting to? But anyways, they're playing a game, and then obviously a lot of the South Carolina fans were booing him because of the whole situation, right? So, and then that game, he drops 40 points, and obviously that's, you got to think a bit. You're like, oh, well, this kid can obviously go through adversity, obviously knowing of the whole situation with the whole murder case. He's like, oh, he can obviously go through slight adversity with the whole knowledge of the murder stuff. And then like just past yesterday, they're playing against, who were they playing? Arkansas. I don't know how many points he dropped, but they obviously won the game. So, I mean, I feel like they're sort of handling it pretty well, but at the same time, I'm sure they're having a little like, they're all looking at each other like, did he? No, because you know what I mean? So like, we're all human. We all like, in the back of our heads, we're like, we hope he wasn't involved with it, but at the same time, a little part of you probably thinks, you're like, damn, did he do it? So yeah, that's basically the whole situation of Alabama.
Interesting. Well, I hope it all kind of comes out and justice is served,
right?
And then the best team wins. But going back to the question, I guess, as you're looking at your bracket, so if I heard you correctly, one way that you start out looking at a bracket is, hey, there are going to be some upsets.
Yes.
I mean, there have to be. So where am I going to put those? So you kind of put those down, right?
Right.
So then what else, what other dynamics are you considering? Are you considering particular matchups, offense versus defense, particular players? How are you going through the thought process of writing out that bracket from left to right, down to center, right?
So like I said, you got to pick a couple upsets, and then you usually go about, I would say 10% of its upsets in the first 2 rounds. And then if you feel lucky enough that you feel like let's say, for example, a 9 seed gets to the Sweet 16, that's not crazy to think. Because like sometimes a 1 seed does lose to an 8 or a 9 seed, depending on who it's 8 or 9. So, and then I would also recommend that you at least go somewhat chalk. Like, I'm not saying go like chalk heavy and put like all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, because that has not happened in a very long time. So I think the last time all 4 number 1 seeds got to the Final Four was the same year with Florida when they went back to back, was like 07, 08. So it's been a hot minute since all the number 1 seeds. And then I would also like recommend to all the listeners, or just anybody who does fill out brackets, like typically you just want to find out, all right, who's their best player? How many points? What are we looking at for their like offensive efficiency? Like, are they in the top 20 in offense, or if they like top 20 in defense or stuff like that? There's some math to it. I mean, you're not going to like project every game right, but if you get close enough where you get most of the picks right, and if you get your Final Four picks right, then most of the time you're going to win. So, I mean, you're probably, so for example, let's say that you picked a 12 seed to beat a 5, but it was the wrong 12 seed. Because like there's like statistics out there that say that a 12 over 5 is like the most likely thing to happen, because like it's just one of the things. But I will also say this real quick, that if you're going to do a 16 over a 1, it's only happened once in NCAA history. It's only happened once, and that was like roughly about 6 years ago, I think, when UMBC beat Virginia. So that was like, that's the only time it's happened so far. And we all thought it was never going to happen. Obviously, never say never. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll do some more research and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's going to be some. I got to see a bracket first, and then I can give you some more like knowledge and be like, all right, pick this team, pick that team, and stuff like that. So I'm going to have to do some more research on more teams because like I mainly have focus on like certain teams to look out for, but I'll have to do some more research on like the mid-level schools. So yeah.
Oh, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. It reminds me, a few years ago, I was reading about how this must have been the 2012 Olympics, whatever the Olympics were for all the COVID craziness. But there were some, people would bet on like the javelin thrower, and there were some guys who like actually went out and like watched these javelin athletes and like really developed a perspective on it, and then they went in and they were very successful betting because these sports were I don't know, sort of unknown enough. Nobody's really paying attention enough that they were actually able to get a competitive advantage on the houses by digging deep. For you, you're competing against millions of Americans who are passionate about March Madness and all this stuff. So it is interesting how it turns into math pretty quick, right? Because there are people accepting a lot of money, putting a lot of money onto these predictions, and you can take this qualitative sense of the Cinderella versus the Goliath, right, and all the human aspect of it. You can convert it down into math at the end of the day, and the betting houses don't lose much money.
That's very true. So let's see what else. Let's move on to I think we slightly talked about it a little bit, but like what's some positives and negatives about living in Colorado?
Good question. I mean, beautiful state. A funny thought for those who haven't been to Colorado or thought much about. Well, what's the culture of Colorado?
Weed.
One way to think about it is weed. Yeah, weed comes to mind. But in some ways, it's all the people who were moving west and got to the mountains and were like, that's far enough. Like I don't need to go to Utah or California. Like this is good. We got over the Great Plains. I don't need to go over the mountains. So there's a Western aspect. There's this kind of easy living. People are pretty chill aspect that kind of feeds into marijuana. It's expensive out here, especially in the metros, right? Cost of living has gone way, way up. You can look back to before the great financial crisis, 2008, and just in that time, a huge change, particularly in the Denver metro area. Trailheads are more crowded, right? If you want to have that experience with nature, which is something else you think about with Colorado, get out into nature, then you need to get up a little earlier, go a little further to have that one-on-one experience with nature.
Right.
For those who are maybe a little more conservatively inclined, not necessarily Republican or whatever the case, but Colorado went from being a very purple state to very blue state. So our state leadership is in the metro leadership are all extremely Democratic, which has some direct policy implications. Here in Denver, particularly, we have some major homeless, mental health, drug addiction issues, which are starting to impact people's lives. I think we're the car theft capital of the world, versus you get out into the rural areas of Colorado, and that's like Lauren Boebert, the well-known conservative firebrand, kind of interesting lady, is from, a place like Rival, Colorado. So definitely a mixed bag. I mean, you have these pockets of very dense, expensive urban areas, which have great coffee shops, great weed, if that's what you're into, a lot of culture. And then you have huge areas of nature, really impressive nature. Actually, interesting little thing, Chanler, I'm not sure you ever thought about this or know this. The federal government owns an incredible amount of land in the western states. So I don't know the exact percentage for Colorado, but using Utah as an example, the federal government owns 80% of Utah.
Really?
And Colorado is somewhere similar to that, right? So when you look at a map of the West, and this is kind of interesting to you, go check it out. The federal government owns huge amounts of land out here. So that's good and bad, right? I mean, it's kind of a limit to development, but a lot of recreational nature opportunities. One exception to that, interestingly, is Texas. The federal government only owns 1% of Texas. So do that with that what you will.
Yeah, gotcha. But no,
I don't know. So some scatterbrained thoughts there on Colorado.
here's some of my like initial like funny thoughts about Colorado, because like like you said, I think it's a cool state. There's some interesting stuff, but like at the same time, once you get outside of Denver, there isn't a whole lot. I mean, there's some cool like little cities like Boulder, Colorado Springs, and like a couple other like what's the place we went to for your wedding? Like Estes Park, right? It was Estes Park.
Estes Park.
Estes Park,
Yeah,
the place where they shot
place.
and that's where they shot The Shining. Fun fact. And I was hoping to get to that hotel, but I ran out of time. Hopefully, I get back there sometime in my life.
It is a haunted hotel.
Yeah. So, anyways, like some of my other thoughts about Colorado is like I said, there's once you get like outside of some of these cities, you're just like in a whole like rural, like a lot of mountains and like grass. It's like, what else is there to do besides just living either in like Boulder, Colorado, or like Denver? So it's just like, why would you want to live there besides either one? Here's another thing about Colorado. I think it's mainly because like a lot of what you wonder why there's so many people there, because all the millennials like you decided, you know what, I'm going to go out west, and then they got to Colorado. They're like, yeah, actually, this is pretty good. I'm just going to stay right here. There's some great local breweries, weed, mountains. Let's just chill right here. Let's just chill out right here. And then they're just stuck there for like 10 years of their life. You're like, yep, I'm good. So basically, that's what happened.
You know, something interesting for your Iowa listeners, and you being an Iowan, there's a regional aspect to all this as well. A lot of Midwestern folks, and so that impacts the culture, right? That leads to that kind of Midwest nice culture out here. Certainly, you do get some people from the coast moving to Denver for the mountains and the weed and some of these cultural things we're mentioning. But just to give you an example of how stark this difference is, I lived in Texas for years. I went to college there. I worked there, in the military. I almost never met another Iowan, and people had never met an Iowan. People would say, "Oh, like where are you from?" I'd say, "Oh, I'm from Iowa." And they'd say, "Ohio?" No, Iowa. Like, Idaho? No, Iowa.
Iowa.
No, it's the nose part of the troll. You ever see that? Like a picture of the U.S. and people have outlined like a little gnome in the middle.
Yeah.
You try and like talk people into it. You're like Field of Dreams, corn, right? And people were legitimately pleased to meet an Iowan. They're like, I've never met an Iowan. That's amazing. Like, tell me about it. You move out here to Colorado, there's so many Iowans. I mean,
really?
Sydney's an Iowan.
Well, that's true.
We met out here, obviously. But totally different. So there is an aspect as well. Culturally, you're going to meet a ton of people from Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, the kind of central U.S. I would say like Denver and Kansas City are the big cities that people, Chicago, I guess, as well. So that has an impact, which could be good or bad for people.
Yeah, for sure. You know what's funny too? Like I would love to go out to Colorado a couple more times, but like here's the tricky part. Sometimes I'm not crazy about flying. Like I'll fly, and the reason I got the first time I went on a flight prior. Okay, so I went on a flight for your guys' wedding, obviously, and I was like, sort of like, all right, I'll go on a flight. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know what it is about flying, but I think it's mainly just the turbulence. I'm like, oh my God, are we going down? But anyways, yeah, I mean, it would be a lot cooler if we just got rid of Nebraska. So that way the trip wouldn't be so long. Because like half of Nebraska is just like nothing. 100%. It's just nothing. There's nothing. Like, once you get like past like Lincoln, I think there's like nothing there. Like, what's the point of Nebraska? And I'm sure you can make the same jokes about Iowa, but we got plenty of other cool cities. Okay, gosh.
Yeah, Nebraska. I've heard, so in Australia where they have the outback, right, which is enormous. It's hard to conceptualize how big Australia is. In certain parts of the outback, they have these signs along the road that kind of keep drivers engaged. Like it'll ask a riddle at mile 5,
right,
and then it'll tell you the answer to the riddle at mile 15. Nebraska needs some of that because you start driving in Nebraska, and
I agree.
I mean, you can just lose track of time and yourself, and I mean, especially if there's some sort of weather that's limiting visibility.
Oh yeah,
Nebraska is super boring.
Oh my gosh! Oh, poor Nebraska getting shit on. Oh well, nobody cares. But no, here I also thought about some. Do you mind talking a little bit about the Scarlett Johansson story? Because like when you told me this, because like it was during one of our like holiday breaks, and you told me the story because I was like watching a Marvel stuff, and you're like, "Oh, Chanler, I have this really cool story about Scarlett Johansson." I was like, "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" So yeah, do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I had mentioned earlier in the podcast that I was in the military. So I deployed to Afghanistan 2016 to 2017. And while I was there, I was in the northeast of Afghanistan, a place called Jalalabad. Occasionally, not occasionally, there is a tradition of high-profile performers and celebrities coming to entertain the troops overseas. So you'll see famous pictures like Marilyn Monroe going to perform for troops in Korea, right? And the same thing happens today. And so there was a USO tour, and there were about 16 people. I can't name all of them, but there was like an NBA player, Scarlett Johansson. Is Chris Hemsworth, is he Captain America?
That's Thor. Chris Evans is Captain America.
Chris Evans is Captain America. I knew it was Chris something.
Yeah, there's a lot of Chris out there.
Scarlett Johansson. Well, anyway, so it was Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson. There's a number of other, I would say more like B-list to C-list celebrities. But they were coming around. They were not coming to where I was. So I want the listener to appreciate that this was really something I really had to put a lot of effort into doing. And my goal was to get to where they were and invite Scarlett Johansson to a military ball. And for those listeners who aren't involved in the military, there is actually a tradition of this. The Marine Corps, many military units have these formal events. And every couple of years, you'll hear about a soldier or a Marine inviting a celebrity, and sometimes they come. And sometimes they say, oh, we can't come, but here's like, I think Angelina Jolie sent a soldier a case of champagne, right? So it happens. And I was like, I want to invite Scarlett Johansson to our post-deployment ball.
I would.
So she and this whole entourage were coming to a base. Not, I don't know, you can't drive places. So I had to jump on a helicopter. I had to get permission. I had to jump on a helicopter, kind of like almost like a taxi service. It's kind of crazy. You don't think about it, but it was like a taxi service between these bases. So I get on a helicopter, I get out there. What I had been led to believe was there would be a meet and greet situation. If you were a soldier who was going to be allowed to go, you would actually get to talk to these people. Well, throughout the day, the schedule just kept getting pushed back. And I'm going to finish out the Scarlett Johansson part, but I have a funny Chris Evans story to kind of conclude.
All right.
So anyway, things kept getting pushed back, and I'm starting to get nervous, right? Now, fortunately, your boy's prepared. And so I had written out the request as well on some nice stationery. They provide that for soldiers overseas to like write back home. And I was slowly getting to the point. I was like, man, this is, is she going to actually be able to come today? Am I going to totally miss this? Well, what ended up happening is instead of the meet and greet, they put all these celebrities, all like 16 of them, in like a row of chairs. And then they would have groups of soldiers, 10 at a time, come in and stand behind them and take a picture. And so there was very minimal interaction, but it was going to happen. So I come in and, I position myself so I'm just to the right of Miss Johansson. And the first thing I'm struck by, she is tiny in person. I mean,
she's kind of short.
She's like just over 5 feet. I mean, I don't know. You watch these movies and you're like, she could be any height, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really have an opinion, but I was amazed. She's a very small woman. But I get near her. I'm like, Miss Johansson, can I ask you something? And she said, oh, yes, what is it? And just in the short amount of time I had, I said, hey, we're having a military ball when we redeploy. This is an invitation, no pressure, but I'd love if you come. And I gave her the card. I never heard back, but she did take it. She put it under her seat. I don't know what she did with it. Maybe she saved it. And I don't know. At a minimum, I asked her. I kind of went through this whole day. There was a lot of setbacks, but when push came to shove, I made it happen, and she didn't come. She didn't send me any champagne, but I definitely got a chance to ask her to come. So.
Awesome. But yeah, I mean, you were determined to at least ask her and give yourself a chance with her. But Scarlett, if you happen to see this video, please give this man at least one dance. All we ask is one dance. One dance.
I am happily married. I understand that she, around that time, is going through divorce, is now, for all I know, happily married. We just have to get coffee together.
Yeah, or at least coffee. Yeah, that too. Or just send him a little gift basket.
At the time, was there a potential that she and I might have, there may have been more? Yeah.
Maybe.
We were both, neither of us were in the situations we are now.
Sliding doors effects. You could have been, married to Scarlett Johansson, then 3 days 3 years later got divorced, and then another 3 years later you met Sid, and boom, back right here. And then she meets Colin Joe, or what's her name? What's his name? Colin Joseph, right? Yeah. So I mean,
yep.
looky there.
Yeah. So life is funny. You never know. That's why you gotta try while you're out there. The funny Chris Evans story. So Chris Evans. This is 2016, 2017. Marvel movies are still big, but Captain America. I don't think the final one had come out or whatever.
Right.
And Captain America is a very compelling superhero, especially for people in the military. Like I would say,
he's Captain America. He's America.
Certainly my favorite movie superhero of recent times, maybe my favorite superhero of all time. So it's pretty cool when Chris Evans is like coming out to see you in Afghanistan, right? Because you're like, that's Captain America, right? I didn't directly witness this, but a friend did. A female officer, she was a lot more interested in meeting Chris Evans than Scarlett Johansson. And so she had been kind of going through a similar process. I don't think she was actually trying to invite him to the ball, but she was trying to meet Chris Evans. I was trying to meet Scarlett Johansson. They eventually arrive. They kind of go down to this gun pit where you shoot an artillery piece. And they're on a bit of a tour as well, right? And Chris Evans steps into this porta potty, which, let me tell you what, porta potties in that area of the world are not pleasant places, but it's kind of what you got for the most part, right? And some soldiers nearby are just straight disappointed because in the movies, he's this huge guy. He's got the shield. He's ripped, and there's a certain amount of preparation that he's done for that and a certain amount of CGI and a certain amount of movie magic. But in reality, he's a great looking dude. He's fit, but he's not like the Captain America in the movie.
Right. And
these soldiers are just like talking to themselves and they're just like legitimately disappointed. Like they thought that it was going to be the movie Chris Evans, not real life Chris Evans. And so he's in the Porta-John and he comes out and he's like, I heard that. He's like, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm glad you're a fan of the movies. And they were so embarrassed and all this stuff. But that's the thing. Hollywood versus real life.
Man, you just hate to see it when you expect like a celebrity or a superhero to look like sort of like what they look like as a character, and you see them in real life, you're like, I don't look like in the movies, So yeah, it's fun stuff. Do you mind? You want to do a quick little Red Hot Chili Peppers draft? Do you mind?
Sure, yeah.
All right,
band for sure.
All right, so how this is gonna work is, we're gonna do a little Red Hot Chili Peppers because like. This is a quick little side note. How long did you and Sid do that? Or like, how long did it take for you and Sid to learn that dance at your wedding?
Yeah. So, for those who didn't attend my wedding, most of the listeners, I'm sure, wife Sydney and I danced our first dances to a Red Hot Chili Pepper song, "Hard to Concentrate." I had known I wanted to dance to that song since college, at least.
Okay.
It's just one of these songs I heard. I'm like, I would like to dance to that in my wedding, and then I found Chanler's cousin Sydney, who I'm married to, and she was up to do it. But you don't want to look like you're in middle school just swinging around. So we actually did dance lessons. One of the hardest things I've done recently. I am, not set up for that. I've never had a sense of rhythm, never had a background dance or anything like that. So we did lessons for like 6 months.
Wow.
It was a nail biter as to how it would turn out, and you don't have to flatter me, Chanler, how to turn out.
I thought it was pretty good. Like, I mean, you kept doing like, it wasn't like anything spectacular, but I thought it was still pretty decent. Like, you did the whole hands thing, you turned and you did stuff like that. So, if I had to scale it from 1 to 10, I'll give you guys a 7. I'll give you guys a 7 or a 6.5.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Cause if we hadn't done the lessons, it would have been a cool song and some wiggling, some swaying around the dance floor. So it would have been like a 1.5. So 6 months of effort, brought us up.
Yeah.
And of course, for just Sydney, I'm sure it would have been a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
10, but I had to be involved as well.
Yep. So I think that was really the discussion or the God, I can't even speak. But anyways, let's get right into the draft here. So this is how it's going to work. So I'll let you go first since you're the guest and you're Mr. Red Hot Chili Peppers guy. So this is how it's going to work. Okay. So if you pick a song, so with your first pick, you pick this song, and then with my next pick, I cannot pick that song. I have to pick a different song. So we'll do 5 picks of Red Hot Chili Peppers songs. Okay. So I'll let you go first. So, Patrick, with your first pick, what song are you picking?
So I'll take "Hard to Concentrate."
Hard to
which is
Concentrate.
her wedding song.
I see. I was sort of expecting you to pick that song, but if you didn't, I was gonna be like, Patrick, you sure you don't want to go with a different song? But no, yeah, it's a great pick. With my first pick, I'm gonna go with Caliphization with my first pick.
Californication.
Yeah, Californication. My bad. So I'll go with that with my first pick. All right.
Can I share a quick story on that one?
Sure, go for it.
That's a great song you picked. That is the first music video I remember because like the internet was new. This whole concept of like being able to watch music videos. There was no YouTube, right?
Oh, right.
And I remember the music video for Californication was I don't know.
I was gonna say I haven't seen it, so
a trippy thing. It was a very trippy thing and totally outside my experience. But for my next song, I will pick "Death of a Martian." And for those who haven't listened to this is a song about the death of one of the Chili Pepper band members' dogs named Martian. And
poor guy.
Really, it's a powerful song. It's a powerful song. It really makes you reflect on the furry friends in your life.
That's a good pick. I've not heard of it, but I'm sure after this, I'll maybe just give it a quick listen. All right, with my number 2, see, I got a couple. See, I made a list on my phone here, so I'll go with "Scar Tissue" with my second pick. That's a good song.
Good, love it. I love it. Nope, that's a great one. I will go with "Midnight," and I'll tell you for those who may not be familiar with that.
I was gonna say you're going deep cup here. You're getting in some deep cuts.
Oh yeah. Well, you as the host, you're kind enough to pick a band that I'm passionate about, so I'm going to take advantage and share a little insight into myself and the Chili Peppers. But I've listened to that song as I'm leaving places, because I moved around a lot with life and the military and work and all this stuff, and it's a great song to just kind of end a chapter of your life. So check that out if you haven't listened to it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so with my third pick, this is going to be an interesting pick, but I'll tell you a quick story why I picked this song. I'm going to go with "Higher Ground." And go with that. And here's a quick story about it. So the only reason I'm picking it at number 3 is because the first time I ever heard this song is from a Power Rangers movie. It's a scene. It's a scene where they're like on a airplane and they're doing like skydiving and they start playing the song. And that's the only reason I remember the song is from that Power Rangers movie. So shout out to Power Rangers when I was a kid.
Good. Hey, they're probably coming back soon. I mean, I think they made a movie somewhat recently, but I got to imagine Power Rangers are coming back soon. Such a great story and the Megazords that get made. I'm going to pick "Desecration Smile." And that's just a real thought provoker. A little more on the contemplative side. So check that out.
All right. Now this might be a steal at number 4, but I'm going to go with "Give It Away." This is a steal, Patrick. Ooh. This is a steal at number 4. I can't believe you let this slide at number 4.
Well, the Chili Peppers.
I mean, they got a lot of great hits, but I mean, it's a steal at number 4. I feel like
it is a steal at number 4. I mean, these guys have created so many great songs. I'm going for more the Patrick Brehany discovering life route, and you pick some of the ones that have made them justifiably one of the best bands of the 20th and 21st century, for sure. So I'll regretfully let you have it. And for my last one, I'll go way back and choose "Blood Sugar Sex Magic," which is one of their, a song from, they had an album named "Blood Sugar Sex Magic." And it's a real punchy song. It definitely feels like it came from a little bit of an older time, but super good.
Awesome. All right. With my final pick, I'm going to go with, let's see, what do I got left? See, there's a couple good ones still on the board, but I think I'm going to go with "Around the World." I think I'm going to go with "Around the World." That's a good one to finish up my my squad here.
I love it. Yeah, all of those are good. I think after this interview, I'm going to have to go back and binge some Chili Peppers.
I was going to say, what's some honorable mentions that we didn't pick?
I like the song "Go Robot." It just has it's back in that "Blood Sugar Sex Magic" time, and I'm not super good at describing music genres, but it's a little more funky,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps. Both those songs are a little more funky than rocky or poppy.
Sure.
And so I like that. I like a little funk.
What about Snow? Or is it called Snow?
Oh,
Hey, oh.
yeah, Snow. Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Snow. Yep. That's a great one.
Under the Bridge.
Under the Bridge. I think Macklemore had a remix of that. Pretty sure.
He might
I
have.
wonder what happened to Macklemore.
It's a great question. I think
like around.
I think he still is. Like I've seen him a couple times, like on popping up on my social media timeline. But yeah, he definitely had a run there for a while where he was pulling out some good songs for sure for people.
I have to go look into that. That's like another one I think about, and I don't want to take us too far off topic here, but you know that song "Waving Flag" that was the World Cup
Oh
song?
yeah,
I mean, that's a great song.
it's a great song. Great song.
The artist behind it is this guy named Kanon. I really enjoy his music.
Oh yeah, I think I'm aware of him.
Every so often, I'll go try and be like, "What's Kanon up to?"
Yeah,
and the answer seems to be he may be making more music. He might not. I mean, maybe you have a song like that and you're good. You know, you can just garden the rest of your life.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple artists out there that like put out like five good songs out there, and then like they'll go missing for like a while, either because they're just taking a break from music or they're just not producing like some of like the classic hits that they put out. Like for example, remember this? I can't think of the guy's name, but remember the song like Dynamite in like the early 2000s?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm throwing my hands up in the air sometimes. Or yeah, is it? No, that's the different. It's another version of that. But yeah, that artist, and then you remember God, who's the other artist I was sort of just thinking about right now? Oh God, darn it, who was it? Oh, remember the guy? Remember the? Never mind. I'm just gonna stop trying.
No, fair enough.
But yeah, it's crazy how some of these like artists like will put out like some good songs and then just like disappear for a while. But like, and you'll like think on a random like Wednesday, be like, hey, what happened to that one guy?
Yeah, right. Versus the Chili Peppers, just tying it all back here. They've been making music since 1980. Now they've had some changes in the lineup over the years, and for instance, for their most recent tour, all the living members of the original band got back together, which was not the case for their tour 10 years ago. So there's been different manifestations of the Chili Peppers, but these guys, this general set of guys, have been making music for like 40 years, and that's crazy.
Have you been to one of their concerts?
Yeah, it was so this last summer, so summer of 2022, they did a big stadium tour, and actually just tying this back to the wedding one more time. I'm getting ready the morning of the wedding, literally the morning of the wedding, and there was a fan pre-sale that I qualified for, and so I dropped all this money on floor level seats for when they came to Denver, just before we stepped out the door to go to the church.
Oh my gosh!
So it was, it was awesome.
That's funny. That's great stuff. I'm sure. Does Sid know about this story?
Oh, she came. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I told her.
I didn't know what the concert was. So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do some rapid fire questions for you. This, because I feel like even though we've sort of got to know each other a lot better since you're not part of my family now, but this is some rapid fire questions. So, first question: texting or calling?
Texting.
Favorite day of the week?
Sunday. I like going to church.
Good for you. What favorite city in the U.S. besides the one you live in?
San Antonio. I like San Antonio.
San Antonio is a great city. I went there for an Iowa State football game, and oh my goodness, such a great city. Such a cool city.
It's got a ton of cool history. It's just different. It doesn't feel like a U.S. city because it has an older history.
Yeah, and it also happens to be right next to the border of Mexico, so there's obviously a whole lot of different culture down there. So, I mean, and here's might slightly get in trouble, but here's a quick story about San Antonio. So, obviously, we went there for the football game, and like we're sort of doing some pregame stuff, and like there's like some beer tents. And I'm not technically the legal age yet, so I went up to the beer tent and grabbed some tickets so I could try and see if I can get some beer, and I got some beer. They did not check my ID, nothing. They just said, "How many you want?" I said, "This." I give them my tickets. So yeah,
love it.
So yeah, obviously Texas did not care how old I was for beer. So yeah, a nickname your parents used to call you. I was gonna say, do you have any nicknames? besides just like Pat? Or I was gonna say, like, what kind of nicknames does a name with Patrick get? Like, there's like Pat, and there's maybe like Rick.
Rick, very rarely. I mean, it's happened like a couple times. You get some situational nicknames. My last name is Brehany. I've been called Brainy before. I'm also kind of an intellectual dude, so like that one kind of fit for sure. I think a family nickname. Did you ever watch The Land Before Time? Was that like Little Dinosaur and his friends?
Oh yeah, I think I've seen it, but
it was like a '90s thing. You have like Littlefoot, and basically they're trying to get to this like. They're trying not to become fossils, is what it comes down to. There was some sort of meteor that hit, but one of the Little Dinosaurs characters is called Petrie. I think it's the little pterodactyl one, and for whatever reason, that was one of my nicknames growing up from the family perspective.
Nice. All right. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
I'd rather speak every language in the world, for sure.
I don't know. I feel like I would want to speak to animals. I mean, it's really cool to speak every language in the world, but like, don't you want to know what Merlin's saying?
Yeah, I mean, so I love like the Dr. Dolittle stories, right? And we were talking earlier in the conversation about babies versus animals, right? In a certain universe, Merlin actually has interesting thoughts. Now, what I imagine would actually happen if I talked to Merlin is he would be like, I want to play ball. Do you have any bacon? Do you want to go on a walk? I mean, not that Merlin doesn't have things he wants to communicate, and other animals, I'm sure, like you go talk to a whale. Who knows what whales are thinking about?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they could be thinking big things, but I'm more of a, I'm just a human person.
That's fair. But yeah, I'm just slightly more curious about what animals are thinking sometimes. So yeah, let's see. Favorite holiday?
Easter.
How long does it take for you to get ready?
Well, I'll tell you what, as we went to this work from home atmosphere, I've gotten it down to 30 seconds, right? You like roll out of bed, cough a couple times, throw on like a shirt and sit down in front of, I'm not on camera a ton at my work, but sometimes you're on camera, right? You throw on like a button up and you're wearing your pajamas and like, bam, you're ready to go. But minimal amount of time, different times in my life, you try and like, you have more of a, a process than others. I
was gonna say, like, typically if I'm like going somewhere, I'll say it probably takes me like 5 to 8 minutes for me to get ready. Even though it seems kind of long, but like you take like a 3-minute shower and then you do like 2 minutes of like trying to figure out what exactly you want to wear. But obviously with my case, nobody's critiquing me on what I want to wear. But obviously on your case, I'm sure your wife will tell you, well, you probably should wear that shirt. Try a different shirt.
True. Yeah. I mean, that is a wonderful part about being in a good relationship and getting married is there are definitely parts of the world that Sydney is way better at than I am.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
I give myself like a 7.
Yeah, I'd give myself a 7.
I'd like to think I've gotten better
maybe
over
an 8.
time. One thing I'll say is it's something I've tried to work on a little bit as I got older. I particularly driving around Texas, like I was driving around Dallas for college, and in Texas, you'll have to merge across like 12 lanes of a freeway to go. Let's say you're trying to go some major directions. This isn't even just you're trying to do something unusual. This is what you need to do to get from point A to point B routinely. And so that you go from, hey, I'm sort of an Iowa driver. I get on the interstate once every, I don't know,
Yeah, it's very, once in a while.
Texas, and any bad habits I had were just amplified by the Texas driving. So I'm working on it. I give myself a 7.
I was gonna say, like, when me and my cousin and like another buddy of mine went to that Iowa State game, we drove through Texas, and it was kind of crazy, like having to drive through Dallas and all the traffic's in so many lanes. It's like, whoa, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you keeping at secrets?
I'm a 10.
You're a 10?
Secrets.
Can you tell me one of Sid's secrets? Come on, Pat.
Yeah.
All right. First celebrity crush.
Oh, first celebrity crush. Gosh. A long time ago.
The Pink Power Ranger?
Britney Spears, I guess. Yeah, Pink Power Ranger. Britney Spears, I guess. Trying to think. My family is so weird, man. I mean, they're still weird, but they were weird then as well. And so it had to be somebody who was like really well known for me to
Sure.
expose them. So probably Britney Spears.
Good answer. Places you want to travel to.
Ooh, good question. Um, I'd love to get to like Russia and China. I don't know. We'll see in our lifetimes to what extent that's possible. I mean, China a little more possible these days. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love to get to large parts of South America. I love travel, man.
You
I'd
sound like
take
it.
many opportunities. Yeah.
Now, see, here's my whole thing with traveling. Like, I don't mind the idea of going outside the U.S. because I think I would like to go to Norway just because it's part of my heritage and all that, because it seems like a cool place.
Sure.
But otherwise, I'm just good just staying either in the North America region. I'll either go to Mexico or Canada. So that's maybe as far as I'll go. I don't know. We'll see.
Sure.
Like I said, once I get older, maybe I'll go outside the U.S. But yeah, I'm good right here in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico region. Maybe the Caribbeans too.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's see what other ones. Oh, here's the last one. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Oh gosh, a lot. I would say so. I have like a pour over these days, which is one of these conical things. You grind the coffee and pour the hot water over it. And
Now,
down.
let me ask you this: Has your amount of coffee adjusted since Noah has been born?
Good question. Probably drinking a little bit more. So this pour over is a liter of coffee, which probably makes like 4 to 6 cups of coffee. And I drink like 1.5 of those. The thing with Noah is, I mean, it's been changing. It changes daily and weekly for sure. But lately he's been getting up at like 5:30 or 6, and then you're just kind of up, right? So whereas normally I get up at say 8 o'clock and try and drink coffee till 10. Now I'm drinking coffee from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So there's a lot more time to drink coffee. So yeah, it's adjusted up, but I definitely drink a lot of coffee. Yeah.
I haven't gotten in the coffee phase yet, but I don't know if I neither want to or willing to. So I don't know. I'll look into that once I get older in life, because I know obviously like you, Aunt Jen, and like plenty other couple people in our family, like including Brad, because I got him coffee for Christmas. So
yeah, that big cat coffee you got me was amazing.
I was gonna ask you, how did you think of it? Because like if you didn't like it, that's totally fine. It wasn't gonna hurt my feelings, but like it was gonna hurt Big Cat's feelings.
Well, I would tweet at Big Cat if I didn't like it. No, it was really, it was very tasty. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah, coffee, one of those things
How do you take your coffee?
It's hard to say, like, I take it black now, but for many years I would have cream certainly and often sugar. I went through this whole phase in the Army. The Army was crazy, where I would drink like 3 monsters a day.
Shush.
Life in the Army was, we had physical fitness 6 a.m. every morning. And I lived 40 minutes often away from where I worked, which is not unreasonable, right? Because otherwise you're living on an Army post. So you have to get up super early. And then a lot of life in the Army, at least when I was in the units I was in, I was working till 6 p.m. at night, most nights. And so you just have a short amount of time between coming and going. I was drinking so many monsters. So sort of an aspect of like, okay, I need caffeine at this point in my life versus coffee is delicious versus some combination of that, right?
Right. I was just curious because of like, everybody seems to be a coffee person now these days.
Well, I will say this. There is definitely good coffee and bad coffee. There is 100% a spectrum. And so if you are kind of exploring coffee, treat yourself, get a nicer coffee, because the bad end of coffee is really bad.
Gotcha. All right, let's see. I'm looking at my notes here to see what other fun stuff I was going to talk to you about. I think we pretty much, we'll sort of wrap it up here with a couple other things.
Sure.
I think you were so I mentioned to you about some like life advice, because like I'm currently at that stage right now where I'm about to finish up college. Hopefully I do. Fingers crossed. But and I need to slightly figure it out. But at the same time, I'm still pretty young because I'm only 24, even though sometimes I forget how old I am these days. Because like the other day I was like, wait, am I really 24? But yeah, I mean, it's just like one of those weird things in life. You're just like, well, I'm still pretty young, but at the same time, I need to like slowly figure out what I'm going to do for majority of my life. So it's been pretty interesting how my life path is going to be at this current stage of my life.
Yeah,
What were you
I
doing
think
at
about
the
this
age
stuff
of
a lot.
24?
So at 24, I was a lieutenant in the military, and that's one reason I've maybe put more formal thought into these things than some other people. So just to tell you a little bit about my life, I received an ROTC scholarship. So that's how you become an officer in the military versus going to West Point, you know. So I received an ROTC scholarship when I was 17. So I swore my oath when I was 18 and my college was paid for. At a certain point, if I had decided to quit that, I would have had to pay the government back full price. So that's not ideal. So I go through college. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into in the military, but I had a job in the military. I tried to do well at it. And then all of a sudden I got out when I guess I was, I had 5 years. So I got out when I was 27, 28. And I felt what I'm sure everybody feels when they really have to take accountability for who am I? What am I going to do in life? And I've navigated that better or worse. I have some thoughts on it. I've also been involved because so many people were good to me and helpful to me. I volunteer and I help other veterans getting out of the military. And that's a population that in many times they made a choice in high school, like I did, to join the military. And they maybe had a similar or different path to me. And then 4 years or 20 years later, like, oh shoot, I gotta like do something that doesn't involve shooting, you know, or it doesn't involve whatever I did in the military, which is what you're facing as well here. The same dynamic at the end of college. And so we could do a whole nother podcast on this.
Right.
So I'll just try and keep it succinct here. But one of the most fundamental things you can do is try and remove as much potentiality as possible. So we all like to have potential in our lives. We like to think that our options are open, you know, like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. But in finance, you often hear of compound interest, right? You put $1 in the bank at 8% interest or whatever, and then you can look at the calculation in 50 years, you have $10,000. That's compound interest, right? Because it's building on itself. That is how you accomplish great things in life, is you double down to do something. So it's not to say you need to just remove potentiality haphazardly or whatever, but you need to like have something you're aiming at, have a perspective. Like what I've watched you do here at the podcast, I have, you know, you said yourself, I have a topic I'm interested in, a medium I'm interested in. I'm going to invest time and effort into it. Like I said, I follow you on Twitter. I'm a follower of your podcast. You look at, you ask yourself maybe this question, Chanler. You put yourself in the shoes of Chanler a couple of years ago when you started this podcast. And what might you say to him, or what might you think of differently, having gone through all of this work, removing a potentiality, right, to be here today? Now, it's not like you're the Joe Rogan experience at the moment, right?
Not at the moment.
But you have so many better data points about who you are and what you enjoy and what you might want to do than if you had just not started this podcast, right?
Right.
So, and then there's also this blog post. There's by this guy named Tim Urban. He has a blog called Wait But Why. I'll shoot it over to you. You maybe share it with your followers on how to pick a career that fits you. That's the best thing I've read on the subject. And anyhow, so some brief thoughts for you.
I mean, yeah, that's a great that's really good. I mean, if I was, I think I started this like roughly 2 years ago. If you would have told me that I was having this podcast right now, I would slightly be like, I don't know about a podcast or anything like that. Like the only reason I keep trying to think why I started this whole podcast thing. Cause like sometimes they'll either go like, well, I was like, I'm sort of interested in the whole podcasting world and all this other stuff and making content. Right. And then there's another part of me that was like, well, I'm going into journalism. I feel like I should be able to sort of like learn how to be a better interviewer and interviewee and stuff like that. So I was just like, and
Mm-hmm.
working myself how to answer questions and stuff like that, right? And then I was like, I think it was just a combination of both. I was like, but yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting sort of journey that I'm on with this whole podcast for sure. And obviously, I've sort of gained my small followers, and obviously, I'm getting more now because I think by the time this podcast airs, I think a lot of our family members will probably listen to this for sure.
I hope so. Right.
But yeah, it's interesting because like I've had like sort of a oh gosh, I think I'm about to go real deep here, but you what's
Sure.
I mean, oh gosh, okay, so have battled with myself about either being completely done with school and just getting a job immediately, or going one more sort of either one more trip around going to school and just getting a legit bachelor degree, because once I'm done with college I get an associate degree, right? it And I've talked to like advisors and all this other stuff about what my future plan could be, but it's like I keep debating with myself, do I want to take a risk and go into a school and just keep going, or do I just want to go right into the workforce? And it's like I don't know, because like a little part of me is like I don't know what else to do besides being a student. Like I would be fine doing the workforce as long as I'm like enjoying it and all the other stuff. But it's like once you leave college, it's like shit, you're in the real world now, dude. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I remember early on, I remember you talking about this a little bit, and I'm sure it is a question that many people around you at Iowa State are dealing with in their own way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the more that you can think about it for yourself and articulate these questions and talk about them in a meaningful way, I think that's beneficial for you and the people around you. I suppose what I would offer, right, is my lens is what is a good life? You know, how do you live a good life? And there's a life where you kind of exist, you pay taxes, you have beer, you know, you drink a six pack on Saturdays. Nothing wrong with simple pleasures, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there's also a world where you go out and do things that interest and excite you with people who you enjoy, where you find a wonderful girl like I found with Sydney, right? You start a family
Mm-hmm.
and you build a good life, right? And a question might be, how is this choice that I have at the moment? What am I doing to have a good life, right? Here's another one. There's getting an education versus being educated. A lot
Right.
of education these days is more of a credentialing exercise, and there are valuable credentials. An associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, which I have, right, are valuable credentials. They can be prerequisites for certain jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also this concept of, well, how is what I'm learning helping me to lead that good life that we were just talking about, you know, versus just being some sort of arbitrary goal that the world said, hey, if you want to succeed, you need this, right? So just a few thoughts there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll figure it out. Future
Yeah.
Chan can worry about it later. Me right now,
Right.
that's a future me problem. All right, Pat. I think we're gonna wrap it up here with just one more question, and then we'll be done.
Sure.
All right. I have two sports trivia questions. I think these are really fun ones for you.
Okay.
Who was the first president to throw the ceremonial first pitch at a Major League Baseball game? Can you name me the president? It's not. I'll give you a slight hint. It's not like in the past like 20 years, or well, yeah. So it's not gonna be like
Sure.
gonna be like Bush or Carter or something like that. So you have to go back a little bit back because baseball's been around for a long time.
It has. It has. Actually, you know, sometime if you invite me back on the podcast, I'll tell you, my great granddad played in the minor leagues with some of the greats. Who was that? One of those guys that shows up in Field of Dreams.
Oh, Lose Jew Jackson.
Yeah, and like some of those guys.
Wow. I was gonna say that could be another pod, but
yeah, and he became a scout for the Pirates. So my family, I was not a baseball player, but there's a deep history there. I'm going to go way back. I'm going to guess Theodore Roosevelt.
Ooh, close. We were looking for. Let me make sure I'm saying his name right. William Howard Taft.
Oh, all right. So I was in the ballpark.
You were sort of in the ballpark. I feel like I don't know what number he was, but I feel like it's pretty close.
He's pretty close before Roosevelt.
All right, maybe.
I'm pretty sure.
We'll say so. All right, this is an interesting question. What is the only sport to be played on the moon? This is actually legit. This actually happened.
Well, we're assuming the moon landing is real. I do believe the moon landing was real, but I'm open to other counter theories on things. I think I have this one. I'm going to say golf.
That is correct. It is golf, and I'll give you a quick story about why that is. So, in 1971, Apollo 14 astronaut Alan Shepard swung his makeshift 6-iron on the moon surface and missed the ball. On his second swing, however, he connected with the ball and went flying miles and miles away. But obviously, in reality, the ball only traveled a few hundred yards. Not bad for a 6-iron. That's Shepard's fault. While the moon gravity is 1/6 of the Earth's gravity, his spacesuit was, more weight him down than. That's why he could barely swing it with. He had to use like one arm to swing the golf ball. So it's a very interesting story.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing. It is like mind blowing. You just sit there and think there have been people on the moon.
It's pretty crazy.
It's mind blowing.
But yeah, Patrick, thank you so much for joining the pod. I might have to bring you back, but we'll see. I'll have my people contact you.
Oh. Okay, good. Well, I'm around, so just tell your people I'm interested. But great conversation, truly an honor, a lot of fun, just to chat with you, and I look forward to sharing it with other folks when it comes out.
All right, thank you so much, Patrick. I'll see you later.
Psychic spies from China.